The twin suns of Zilani Prime cast long shadows across the crystal towers that spiraled into the pale orange sky. Commander Veltar stood before the massive viewing screen in the Planetary Defense Center, his forearms trembling as he watched the red dots multiply on the long-range scanner. Each dot represented death. Each dot was a Vorthok warship. "Commander," his aide whispered, her voice barely audible above the hum of the detection equipment. "The fleet is larger than we thought. Our computers count over 2,000 vessels."
Veltar
closed his large, dark eyes. In all his cycles of service, he had never imagined this day would come. The Zilani people had built their civilization on peace, on the belief that knowledge and harmony could solve any problem. They had no army, no weapons of war. Their ships were designed for exploration and trade, not battle.
"How much time do you?"
"We have?" he asked, though part of him did not want to know. 17 standard cycles until they reach our outer defense grid. Maybe 16 if they maintain their current speed. The defense grid. Veltar almost laughed at the name. It was nothing more than a collection of sensors and communication relays. It could detect an approaching enemy, but it could not stop one. The Zilani had never needed to stop anyone before. He walked to the communication station and placed his hand on the control panel. The metal felt cold against his palm. Round him, other Zilani workers watched with frightened eyes. They all knew what the red dots meant. They had all heard the stories from the border worlds. The Vorthok Empire had been conquering star systems for over 1,000 cycles. They took what they wanted and destroyed what they could not use. Entire species had been wiped out. Worlds had been turned into smoking ruins. The Vorthok did not negotiate. They did not show mercy. They simply took. "Open all communication channels," Veltar ordered. "Maximum broadcast range." The aide's fingers danced over the controls. "Channels. Open, Commander. Broadcasting on all known frequencies." Veltar took a deep breath and began to speak. His words would travel across the galaxy at faster than light speed, reaching every world, every station, every ship that had the equipment to receive them. "This is Commander Veltar of Zilani Prime. We are a peaceful people who have never raised weapons against any other species. Our world is home to 3 billion souls who have done no harm to anyone. But the Vorthok Empire approaches our system with a massive fleet. We face complete destruction. We beg any civilization that receives this message to help us. We have advanced technology that we will share freely with anyone who aids us. Please, we do not want to die." The message went out into the void, carrying with it the hopes and fears of an entire world. Veltar knew that most species would simply delete the transmission when they realized what it was. No one wanted to fight the Vorthok. No one wanted to face the empire that had never been defeated. Across the galaxy, the message reached countless worlds. On the trading stations of the hegemony, alien merchants heard the plea and shook their heads sadly. On the military bases of the Federation, generals calculated the odds and found them hopeless. On dozens of advanced worlds, leaders made the cold decision to ignore the call. Fighting the Vorthok meant certain death, and every species in the galaxy knew it, but 47 light-years away. On a small blue world that most of the galaxy had never heard of, the message found different ears. Captain Li Dongwu sat in the command chair of the Earth Defense Station as the alien transmission played through the bridge speakers. The voice spoke in broken galactic standard, the words choppy and uncertain, but the meaning was clear. Someone was going to die unless help came. "Sir," reported the communications officer, a young woman named Kim who had joined the service only 2 years ago. "The signal is coming from the Zilani system. Our computers show it's about 47 light-years from Earth." Dongwu studied the data on his screen. Humanity had only discovered faster-than-light travel 15 years ago. Their ships were ugly and crude compared to the sleek vessels they sometimes saw in the outer systems. Human weapons were primitive. Human technology was basic. Most alien species looked down on humans as backwards newcomers to the galaxy. But as Dongwu listened to the fear in the alien voice, something stirred deep in his chest. It was something that humans knew better than most species in the galaxy. It was the feeling that came when someone weaker was being threatened by someone stronger. It was the feeling that made humans stand up to bullies, even when they knew they might lose. "Kim," he said quietly, "patch me through to Earth Command. Use priority alpha protocols." "Sir, that frequency is reserved for planetary emergencies." Oh, Dongwu looked at her with steady eyes.
Nice.
"I think this qualifies." As the connection to Earth was established, Dongwu continued to listen to the desperate broadcast from Zilani Prime. 3 billion souls, an entire civilization about to be wiped out. And somewhere in the galaxy, there was an empire that thought it could do whatever it wanted to whoever it wanted. The captain's jaw tightened. Maybe it was time someone taught them differently. The meeting room in Geneva was silent except for the soft hum of the holographic projector. Admiral Park Jinwoo stood at the center of the room, surrounded by representatives from every nation on Earth, the images floating. In the air above the table told a story of horror that made even hardened military officers look away. Dead planets. Cities turned to glass. Entire species wiped from existence. "This is what the Vorthok Empire does," Park said, his voice steady, despite the terrible images. "They have been doing this for over 1,000 years. They take what they want and destroy everything else." The hologram changed to show a massive fleet of dark ships moving through space like a swarm of insects. Red markings covered their hulls, and weapon ports lined their sides like angry eyes. "Our intelligence says they are sending over 2,000 ships to destroy the Zilani Park," continued. "The attack will begin in less than 2 weeks. When it does, 3 billion innocent people will die." The council chairman Kim Hyente shifted in his chair. He was an old man who had lived through 3 wars on Earth, but the images before him showed destruction on a scale he had never imagined. Admiral Kim said slowly, "How many ships do we have?" 197 combat vessels, sir. That includes everything from heavy battleships down to patrol boats." "And the Vorthok have over 2,000? "Yes, sir. And their ships are larger and more advanced than ours." A woman at the far end of the table raised her hand. She was General Martinez from the South American Defense Force. "Admiral, what you are suggesting is suicide. Our entire fleet against an empire that has never been defeated? You would be sending our people to die for nothing." Park nodded. "You may be right, General. We might all die. But let me ask you something. What kind of people are we if we do nothing? What kind of species are we if we let 3 billion innocent souls be murdered while we sit safely at home?" The room erupted in arguments. Some representatives shouted that Earth's duty was to protect Earth, not aliens they had never met. Others argued that humanity had always stood against bullies, no matter the odds. The debate went on for hours, but Park had known from the beginning what the decision would be. He had studied human history for 40 years. Humans had always been fighters. They'd fought each other, fought their environment, fought their way from caves to the stars. When faced with impossible odds, humans did not usually run away. They usually ran toward the fight. The vote was unanimous. Earth would send its fleet to help the Zelani. Within 3 days, every military base on Earth and in the outer colonies was buzzing with activity. Ships that had been in maintenance were rushed back into service. Crews that had been on leave were called back to duty. Weapons that had been in storage were loaded onto transport ships. Captain Choi Minho stood on the bridge of his battleship and watched the fleet assemble. The ships emerging from the lunar shipyards were not beautiful. They were ugly, blocky vessels designed for one purpose: war. Their hulls were thick armor plating. Their weapons were crude but powerful nuclear missiles and railguns that could punch holes through asteroids. Reported Commander Song Yu-jin from the communications station. "All ships are reporting ready for departure. Admiral Park is requesting permission to begin the jump to hyperspace." Choi looked through the main view screen at Earth, hanging in the darkness below them. The blue and white planet looked so peaceful from up here. Most of the people down there were sleeping, unaware that their entire space fleet was about to leave on a mission that would probably end in death. He thought about his wife and daughter and soul. He had told them he was going on a routine patrol mission. He had not told them that he probably would never see them again. What father could tell his child such a thing? "Captain," Song said quietly, "Admiral Park is waiting for your response." Choi straightened in his command chair. Round him, his crew worked at their stations with calm efficiency. They all knew what they were facing. They all knew the odds. But none of them had asked to be transferred to a different ship. None of them had requested to stay behind. Signal, the Admiral, Choi said. The Soul's Fire is ready for departure. By one, the other ships in the fleet sent the same message. The massive carrier Incheon's pried with her squadrons of fighters. The heavy cruiser Bassan's hammer with her powerful guns. The destroyers and frigates and support ships that would keep the fleet supplied and running. Admiral. Park's voice crackled over the communication system, reaching every ship in the fleet. This is Admiral Park to all vessels. In a few moments, we will jump to hyperspace and begin our journey to the Zilani system. I will not lie to you about what we face. The enemy is stronger than us. The enemy has more ships than us. Many of us will not come home. He paused, and when he spoke again, his voice was stronger. But we go anyway. We go because someone has. To stand up to bullies? We go because 3 billion innocent people are counting on us. We go because that is what humans do. All ships, prepare for hyperspace jump. The fleet vanished into the swirling tunnel of hyperspace, carrying humanity's answer to a galaxy that had forgotten how to fight back. The space around Zilani Prime rippled like water as the human fleet dropped out of hyperspace. 200 ships appeared in flashes of blue light, their engines glowing hot from the long journey across the galaxy. Ambassador Kiravine watched from the observation deck of the diplomatic station, her large eyes reflecting the distant lights. Of the arriving vessels, they came, she whispered to herself, hardly believing it. They actually came. Her aide, a younger Zilani named Torvin, studied the approaching fleet through the magnification screen. His expression was puzzled. The human ships looked nothing like the sleek vessels that usually traveled between the stars. They were blocky and ugly, covered in armor plating and weapon mounts. Ambassador, Torvin said carefully, these ships look very basic. Are you sure they can help us? Kiravane was wondering the same thing. The largest human vessel was massive, but its hull was scarred and dented, as if it had been in many battles. Strange symbols were painted on its side, and weapons stuck out from every surface like the spines of some dangerous animal. The communication system crackled to life. A human face appeared on the screen, older and weathered, with gray hair and tired eyes. But those eyes were also hard and determined in a way that made Kiravine secondary. Hearts beat faster. This is Admiral Park Jinwoo of the Terran Defense Fleet, the human said in slow, careful galactic standard. We received your distress call. We are here to help. Kiravane stepped forward, her crystalline skin catching the light. Admiral Park, I am Ambassador Kiravane. We are grateful that you answered our call, but I must be honest. The Vorthok fleet has over 2,000 ships. Your force appears to have only 200. The human admiral nodded grimly. That is correct, Ambassador. We are outnumbered 10 to 1. But our ships may look primitive, and they are built for one thing: fighting. Wars. However, we will need your help if we are going to have any chance of winning. Our help? Kiravane was confused. Admiral, we are a peaceful people. We have no weapons, no military knowledge. But you have technology that is far ahead of ours, Park replied. Your energy shields, your sensors, your computers. If we can combine your advanced technology with our knowledge of warfare, we might be able to surprise the Vorthok. What happened next was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Within hours of the first meeting, human engineers were working. Side by side, with Zilani scientists in the orbital shipyards. The Zilani had never built weapons before, but they understood energy and matter in ways that amazed the humans. The humans had never seen such advanced technology, but they knew exactly how to turn peaceful tools into instruments of war. Captain Lee Dongwoo supervised the retrofit of his destroyer from the main engineering bay. Zilani technicians were installing blue energy shields around his ship's hull, while human engineers mounted new weapon systems that fired bursts of pure quantum energy. Captain, his chief engineer reported, the Zilani shield generators will increase our defensive power by 400%. And these new torpedo systems they're giving us can punch through armor, that our old weapons couldn't even scratch. Lee nodded as he watched a team of Zolani human workers install a new sensor array. The aliens were tall and thin, with skin that looked like living crystal. They moved gracefully and spoke in soft, musical voices. It was hard to believe that people so peaceful were about to go to war. In the training facilities, the cooperation was even more surprising. Human Marines were teaching Zolani volunteers how to fight in close combat, while Zolani instructors showed humans how to use their advanced medical technology to treat battle wounds. Lieutenant Colonel Lunj Soman watched a group of young Zolani practice with salvaged Vorthok weapons. They were clumsy at first, their peaceful nature making it difficult for them to think about causing harm. But they learned quickly, and soon, men could see the determination growing in their large eyes. "People learn fast," Ambassador Kiravane said, approaching the human officer. "But I must ask, why do you fight with such intensity? I have watched your soldiers train, and they seem almost eager for battle." Sunmin checked her sidearm and looked at the ambassador with serious eyes. "Ambassador, humans have been fighting wars for thousands of years. We have fought each other over land, over resources, over ideas. We have learned to be very good at it because those who were not good at fighting did not survive. But surely you prefer peace." "Of course we do. But we have also learned that sometimes you have to fight to protect peace. Sometimes you have to be willing to use violence to stop greater violence." As they spoke, alarms began to sound throughout the station. On the long-range sensors, new contacts were appearing at the edge of the system, hundreds of them, then thousands. The Vorthok had arrived. Through the viewing ports, they could see the enemy fleet emerging from hyperspace like a red tide of death. The ships were sleek and black, marked with crimson symbols that had brought terror to 100 worlds. They moved in perfect formation, confident and deadly. But this time they would not face helpless victims. This time, they would face something the galaxy had never seen before: human fury backed by alien technology. The Vorthok fleet moved through space like a storm cloud of death. 2,000 black ships advanced toward Zolani Prime in perfect formation, their red markings glowing like angry wounds against their dark hulls. But on the bridge of the massive flagship Eternal Dominion, War Commander Vekvar stood 8 feet tall, his armored body gleaming under the harsh lights. "Status report," he commanded, his voice like grinding metal. "All ships in position, War Commander," his aide replied. "The enemy fleet numbers only 200 vessels. They appear to be primitive constructs from an unknown species." Vekvar laughed, a sound like breaking glass. In his 1,000 years of service to the Empire, he had conquered 50 star systems and destroyed dozens of species. Never had any race been foolish enough to challenge the Vorthok with such pathetic numbers. "These newcomers think they can stand against the Empire," he snarled. "End this quickly. I want to begin the planetary bombardment before the day is finished." But as the Vorthok fleet approached, something unexpected happened. The human ships did not retreat. They did not form defensive positions around the planet. Instead, they turned toward the approaching enemy and accelerated at full speed. Their crude engines burning so hot, they left trails of plasma in the darkness. Captain Choi Min-ho stood on the bridge of his battleship, Soul's Fire, and watched the enemy fleet grow larger on his screens. Around him, his crew worked with calm efficiency, preparing weapons and checking shield systems. They all knew they were probably about to die, but none of them showed fear. "All ships, this is Soul's Fire." Choi's voice rang out across every human vessel in the fleet. "Remember why we came here. For the Zolani people who asked for our help, for humanity and what we stand for. Show these bullies what fire and steel can do." The first impact came from Commander Han Sujin's frigate, Dagu's Fury. Instead of firing weapons at long range like a normal battle, Han aimed his ship directly at a Vorthok heavy cruiser and pushed his engines to maximum power. The two ships collided at incredible speed, creating an explosion that lit up the entire star system like a new sun. On the Vorthok flagship, Vekvar stared at his screens in shock. What did they just do? The enemy vessel rammed our cruiser, War Commander. Both ships were destroyed. Possible, Vekvar growled. No species uses ramming attacks. Means certain death for the attacker. But the humans were just getting started. Captain Li Dongwu led his destroyer squadron around the enemy's right flank. The ships now armed with Zilani energy weapons that could cut through Vorthok armor like paper. Blue beams of quantum fire lashed out from his vessels, turning enemy cruisers into balls of flame. Target their command ships, Li ordered over the communication system. Take out their leaders and the rest will panic. The space around Zilani Prime became a nightmare of destruction. Human ships fought like wild animals, using tactics that no civilized species had ever attempted. They rammed enemy vessels, fired at point-blank range, seemed to welcome death as long as they could take enemies with them. Lieutenant Misael Park Yoon-ji led her fighter squadron through the middle of the Vorthok formation, weaving between the massive enemy ships like angry wasps. Her pilots had trained for only 3 days with the new Zilani weapons, but they fought as if they had been born for war. "Blue Leader, this is Blue 3, came a voice over her radio. "I've got a clear shot at their carrier. Take it, Blue 3. All fighters, concentrate fire on the big ships. Make every shot count." The small human fighters launched missiles that burned through Vorthok's shields and exploded inside enemy hulls. Ships that had conquered 100 worlds found themselves being destroyed by weapons they had never seen before, fired by pilots who fought with impossible courage. But the Vorthok still had superior numbers. Slowly, the human fleet began to take heavy damage. Ship after ship was destroyed or crippled. The Soul's Fire, Admiral Park's flagship, was surrounded by 6 enemy cruisers, her shields failing and her hull cracked open in a dozen places. Park stood on his burning bridge, watching his fleet die around him.
Wow.
Most of his ships were gone. The survivors were badly damaged and running out of ammunition, but they had hurt the enemy badly. Hundreds of Vorthok ships floated dead in space, their crews learning too late that humans did not fight like anyone else in the galaxy. Admiral, his communications officer, called out through the smoke, "We're receiving surrender demands from the enemy flagship." Park looked at the massive Vorthok command ship on his screen. It was close now, so close he could see the weapon ports along its hull. An idea formed in his mind, crazy and desperate, but maybe their only chance. "Signal all remaining ships," he ordered. "This is Admiral Park. It has been an honor to serve with all of you. Tell Earth when you get home that we kept our promise to help those who needed us." He turned to his helm officer. "Set collision course for the enemy flagship. Full power to engines." The Soul's Fire turned toward the Eternal Dominion like a wounded animal making one last attack. Park's ship accelerated until her engines screamed. Aimed directly at the heart of the enemy fleet, the collision created a shockwave that disabled dozens of ships on both sides. With their command ship destroyed and their war commander dead, the surviving Vorthok forces panicked and fled into hyperspace. Leaving behind the wreckage of the first defeat in their empire's history, the starbase orbiting Zilani Prime was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen before. Built from both human steel and Zilani crystal technology, it gleamed like a jewel against the stars. Admiral Yoon Jae-sung stood at the observation deck, watching ships from 2 different worlds work together as if they had always been allies. 6 months had passed since the Great Battle, but Yoon could still see the debris field where so many brave souls had died. Pieces of destroyed ships drifted in the distance, monuments to the courage of those who had chosen to fight against impossible odds. Admiral Commander Kim Da-hai approached with a datapad in her hand. She was young for her rank, promoted quickly after showing exceptional skill during the battle. "We're receiving another distress call. This time, it's from the Corvani Republic. They say Syndicate raiders are attacking their outer colonies." Yoon took the pad and read the message. It was written in the same desperate tone as the original. "Zilani plea for help. Another peaceful species being attacked by those who were stronger and more ruthless." "How many ships are we talking about?" he asked. "Intelligence suggests about 500 raider vessels, sir. The Corvani have no military fleet at all." Yoon nodded slowly. This was becoming a common pattern. Word of humanity's victory over the Vorthok had spread across the galaxy like wildfire. Some species had reacted with fear, worried that humans might become the next galactic conquerors. But others, the weak and oppressed, had begun to hope that someone might finally help them. Ambassador Kiravine walked across the observation deck toward them. The Zilani diplomat looked different now than she had 6 months ago. Her crystalline skin bore scars from the ground battles she had fought alongside human marines when Vorthok forces had landed on her homeworld. She had learned to use weapons, and had killed enemies with her own hands to protect her people. "Another call for help?" she asked, seeing the datapad in Yoon's hands. "The Corvani Republic," Yoon replied. "Pirates are destroying their colonies." Kiravine's large eyes grew sad. "Your species has changed everything, Admiral. Before the battle here, no one in the galaxy believed that evil could be defeated. Everyone simply accepted that the strong would always prey upon the weak. But you showed them something different." "A terrible cost," Yoon said quietly. "We lost over half our fleet in that battle. Thousands of good people died. But their sacrifice meant something," Kiravine replied. "Look around you." Yoon followed her gesture and saw what she meant. In the corridors of the starbase, humans and Zilani worked together as equals. Human engineers learned advanced technology from their alien partners, while Zilani scientists studied human military tactics. Children from both species played together. In the residential sections, growing up as friends rather than strangers, Captain Lee Dongwoo approached them, now wearing the insignia of an admiral. He had been promoted after leading the successful defense of the Zilani orbital stations during the final phase of the battle. "Admiral Yoon," he said, saluting crisply. "I've received reports from our patrol fleets. The Vorthok Empire is collapsing. Faster than we expected. 12 of their subject worlds have declared independence in the past month alone." "Good," Yoon replied. "But that also means more chaos, more opportunities for raiders and pirates to prey on the weak." "Yes, sir." "It also means more species are willing to stand up and fight. The hegemony worlds have formed their own defense alliance. The Outer Rim colonies have started building warships. Everyone is learning from what we did here." A communication alert sounded throughout the starbase. "Admiral Yoon to the command center," came the announcement. "Priority message from Earth. Command." The 3 officers made their way to the command center, where a holographic image of Earth's Defense Council chairman was waiting. The old man looked tired, but proud as he began to speak. "Admiral Yoon, I have important news. The Galactic Council has formally recognized the Terran-Zilani Alliance as a legitimate governmental body. They are requesting our assistance in establishing peace in 3 additional sectors." Yoon was not surprised. The Galactic Council had ignored humanity before the battle, treating Earth as an insignificant border world. Now they were eager to work with the species that had done the impossible. "What are your orders, sir?" Yoon asked. "Use your best judgment, Admiral. You're there. We're not. Help whoever needs help, but don't overextend our forces." After the transmission ended, Yoon walked to the memorial wall, where the names of the fallen were carved in both human and Zilani writing. Admiral Park Jinwoo's name was at the top, along with thousands of others who had died fighting for people they had never met. "Signal the fleet," Yoon commanded. "All ships prepare for hyperspace jump. Set course for Corvani space." Within hours, the combined human-Zilani fleet was ready for departure. The ships were different now, built with technology from both civilizations. They were faster, stronger, and more advanced than the crude vessels that had first answered the Zilani distress call, but they carried the same spirit, the same willingness to fight for those who could not fight for themselves. The same promise that bullies and tyrants would not go unchallenged. As the fleet vanished into hyperspace, carrying hope to another desperate world, the galaxy continued to learn a truth that would reshape civilization itself. Humanity had not come to conquer or to rule. They had come to prove that someone would always stand up to darkness, no matter how powerful it seemed. The age of unopposed tyranny was over. The age of fire and steel had begun.